I'm Gareth Jones, and this is my studio, The Art Lab. I just want to flag up that I'm doing a live Zoom Q&A on the Vaughan George YouTube channel on Sunday, December the 6th in the evening. It's going to be a couple of hours, and I'm going to take questions and chat about my life in music and the recording studios, and hopefully chat a little bit about my electrogenetic record as well. Thank you.
Sziasztok! Köszöntök benneteket a Tévfilm Rekordon. Mai nap ugye második videó van Gareth Jones új lemezéről. Mai nap nem fog túl sokat beszélni, nagyon is keveset, mert Vaughan George és Gareth Jones fog beszélni egy csomót. Ők fogják elhúzni itt a csíkot ma. Jól van, akkor szerintem most nézzük is. Ugye hát vannak Gareth Jones és Vaughan George videók együtt. Azokból fontos kis részleteket kivágok, és azokat fogjuk ma megnézni. Jó, akkor szerintem nézzük is először az egyik videóból egy kis részt.
Drugs, kids. Do not do drugs.
So if we look at some of the tracks, the very first track is called The Beginning. And
It's a no-brainer.
going to give a few spoilers away here. This is spoken word, and as I say, when I put this vinyl on, I only had one expectation, that it was going to be brilliant. Okay, and I'm not trying to fanboy you here, but I knew it was going to be good, and it didn't disappoint me. It was.
That's a relief.
No, you really didn't. There are certain artists we talk about on this channel that have released albums recently that have been rather disappointing, but this is not one of them. And of course, this starts with you with the spoken word, where you read in the beginning and stuff, you know. So it was interesting when I heard the voice. I could instantly hear that's your voice. So for you to actually put your voice on this,
That was very important to me, and it was something that came a bit later.
did you decide to put someone else on it?
No, but the idea of having it's a true solo record, so that I wanted to do kind of more or less everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's not quite 100% just me, but it felt important that I should do that. But I didn't know about the idea of text and my voice came later, because the title of the album. I'm trying to allude to the fact that the
Electrogenetic and genetics
give a birth to.
Yeah.
But by interfacing with the electronics, I'm streaming some kind of creative power.
You're right. It does remind me of something that Jean-Michel Jarre said on one of his records, and I do put this in that same league of brilliance. He said something about. He said, "To me, creating music is like building a resonant landscape somewhere between ecology and technology."
Okay.
So it's kind of reminds me. It's in that world. It's very and what I like about this album, guys, is it's obviously very electronic, and that's what we'd expect from you. It's not a rock album. So the sound is more or less what I'm expecting. It is electronic, but it's very organic at the same time. You know, when you listen to, and these aren't technical terms, you know, when you listen to certain types of electronic music, it just sounds diggy, 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 very electronic. But when you listen to some electronic music, it just sounds really earthy and organic. You know what I mean? It's like the sounds are. You know what I'm trying to say? Obviously, electronic music is synthetic, it's not organic, but this just sounds like it's from the earth. It just sounds. Do you know what I mean?
I hope so.
Yeah. So that's what I think. Okay, let's look at track 2, Trinity. So, okay, the beginning is obviously it's kind of like the prologue. It kind of sets the stage for the album. And then Trinity, the second track, you've got this great sort of modular. Boom, boom, boom. We can talk about this see my face smiling. We can talk about this in the Geek Talk later on. But you've got this deep sort of modular, and please tell me you did use a modulator, it wasn't a plug-in.
And I don't think there's many plugins on the record. It's largely analog synths.
I loved the choir that came in on the Trinity, because you've got like this kind of modular thing, which is it just reminds you of all the great. I'm not going to names drop, but it's got that sound of that sound that we know of all the greats. And then this
shout out to Make Noise.
Okay. That's a good shout out. And then choir, you got like the spiritual choir. Now, this choir, is that like a plug-in or a sample or
The choir is. I was in contemplation in a chapel, and it was completely empty. And then a choir came in for a rehearsal.
So it's a real choir.
I knit some bits. Yeah.
It just works. I love the modular and the way the choir comes.
That's why it had to be for me. And it was another great piece of synchronicity, which has a kind of a spiritual element. I happened to have my field recorder with me, and basically I started it up and I recorded some snippets of their rehearsal. Wow. And later, I don't know how much later, perhaps a month or week, I thought, oh, maybe it fits on that piece. And by pitching it and shifting it, I was like, oh, it fits.
Yeah, it works.
Excuse me. And once it was on, then obviously it felt like it had to be. So that was a discovery, really, a sonic discovery.
Brilliant. Right, so the next track is Mercury. And this is, to me, the most... you've got to be careful when you're talking to people about their records. You don't want to sort of compare it to other things, but this is the way the human brain works. You always try to draw associations.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
But this is the most sort of Blade Runner-ish to me.
Okay.
Just in it, and that's obviously... I think the great thing as an artist is that you let people interpret your music the way they see it. And this just has that kind of Blade Runner-ish dreamy kind of thing. And the vocal effects on this are really something we should talk about in the Geek Talk.
Mercury I should just talk about briefly.
Sure.
Because it was a very long improvisation that I did over Christmas. I took the modular home.
Because you did this over a year, sorry.
About a year, yeah. And this was... that was my brief. I made a contract with myself to try and make a record, to say by the end of 2019 needs to be done. I think had I not done that, I wouldn't have done it, because it's easy to let this stuff drift.
Of course.
Hey, I'd had sketches on my computer for 30 years that I never finished, as we all do.
Yeah.
So I kind of made a little personal contract. I told a couple of friends, just like incidentally, I didn't make a big deal. I said, oh, by the way, this year I'm planning to do like a solo project. My wife knew, my friend Lawrence Spell at Domino, I mentioned it to him when we were just having a bit of lunch.
Did they hold you
big deal.
Accountable to
well,
it?
No, they didn't, but I held myself accountable because I told them, because I'd have felt like a real dick if I then said, oh, I didn't do it, you know. So that was but anyway, Mercury, I love all my children on the album, obviously, but Mercury was like really long, because when you start doing these jams with the modular, time just disappears, and it can so that was a real journey. It's still, I think, the longest piece on the record, but it was like an hour and a half long when I started, you know. So,
and this is, as I say, we'll talk about this more in the Geek Talk interview. But Simon and I had a board meeting before like a battle meeting before a day before, and this was one of the questions which we could get into in the Geek Talk. There are different types of ways of, obviously there's no right way or wrong way, but a lot of people will write a song, they'll come up with a piano or the song with the structure. And I'm assuming, we'll talk about this in Geek Talk, with you it's more experimentation, like playing with the modular, see what comes of it. And then I think you've got a more, you remind me, if you were a painter, you're just going like this and then just finding something in that. You're not as, it's not like it's structured.
I think there's a parallel with abstract painting.
Okay.
I was thinking about that recently. Okay. And it's something
you let yourself go and you find something within that.
And you put yourself in a certain state in order to create the great work. I'm trying to reflect this in the title. When you build a modular, all the pieces start with modular patches. When you build a modular patch, it gives you something back that you can interface with. In my world, anyway, where together we make something that otherwise we wouldn't have done. I don't go in with a clear plan. Okay. I build a patch, and then I interface with it by touching it and moving things, and this amazing shit happens,
so which I then choose. Random,
it's not exactly random because I chose the modules and I built the patch.
But there's surprises,
it's kind of
accidents.
stochastic.
Yeah.
It's there are many surprises, and many happy accidents and many unhappy accidents which I don't use.
Yeah.
You know, and in that state, in that kind of contemplative, meditative, interactive, creative state, then I feel that we, all of us who work with the modulars, are open to like a higher power, really, and we're channeling something bigger than all of us. And if we're lucky, we can capture a little snippet of that and share it with everyone else.
Now, that is absolutely true. And I say there's different ways of doing it because, you know, I'm self-taught, but I'll come up with songs, and I'm very a melody kind of guy.
Yeah.
I really like follow a song above, and that's the melody. That's the song, and then we build the song around the melody structure. However, I'm thinking of when I went to the Synthfest, and a shout out to Tom J. Carpenter. He's built this thing called Colossus.
Yeah,
and
I've seen the Colossus.
Shout out to the Colossus. Didn't understand it. You see, as I say, I'm a guy. I'll come up with melodies, and I will build my tracks around a melody, and it follows that. Simon's the kind of guy. He will stand at this thing and I'll just be like, dude, what are you doing? And then eventually you'll come and go, oh my God, it's like he'll find something. And in finding that, there's just like a magic. Look, he's tweaking and he knows he knows doing that's going to do that. It's going to lead to that. But then a magic comes from that you wouldn't necessarily get if you had just followed a structure. So I really get that, and it's something I really want to talk about in the Geek Talk series.
Okay.
And I'm going to get my modular expert Simon on, and he's going to ask Gareth some of the more manipulating questions. We'll see how much Mr. Jones really knows.
Not much. Trust me.
Okay, so the next song is Michigan, and it's not a very long track, that one.
No, it's not very long now. I tried not to be indulgent, you know. The record could have been like 400 minutes, but I didn't want to put anyone through that. Yeah. So it's not that long now.
Yeah. Why did you choose the name Michigan, though? What's the significance of
my wife's from Michigan.
Oh, okay.
And this piece wasn't written in Michigan. Two pieces were written in my mother-in-law's basement. When my mother-in-law died, my wife and I went, as many people do, we went back to the family home to clear the house. So I wrote a couple of tracks in the basement of my mother-in-law's house when we were clearing the house, Farewell and Safe Travels. But Michigan I made here. Partly I had my friends in a wonderful group called Wavoka Gentle, who I produced some music with them, invited me to do a support gig at a concert they did 2019, and I made a modular patch, and I used Imi's voice, and one of the songs that I recorded with them that I loved was called Ice Fisherman, and in the patch I made for my live performance I took Imi's voice and put it in my modular, and it turns out that one of the words was Michigan, and this was another little synchronicity moment. Well, when I came after the gig, when I came back to work on my album, in the sampler the voice was still there because it was, and I was just playing around with it, and I thought, oh, that fits, maybe I can use that in here. So if you listen carefully, you can hear like a cut up sampled voice saying the word Michigan. So it's
and that's just completely randomly.
That's a kind of piece of double, multiple synchronicities happened.
Wow.
And it's I had respect for my wife, I had respect for the mother-in-law.
Yeah.
I've opened a relationship with Michigan because over the many years that I've been married, I've visited many times, and so it felt like a nice coming together. So.
Okay. No, and the next track is Farewell. Would that be a direct?
It's a direct goodbye,
to
all the parents. Both my father, as so often happens, men died earlier.
Yeah, they did.
But it's a farewell to all of them, really, to the mums and dads, and other friends that we've lost. It's not just specific, It's acknowledgement of the fact that life is limited, and let's make the best of it whilst we've got it.
And so it's something, we can, and that's what I like about this, because I get quite philosophical on my channel sometimes, but there is a depth to this. There is a real emotional depth to this. As I say, by the time you get to the the last track. As I said, I cried when I heard it. I actually cried. And the second time I heard it, I cried. And I listened to it all again this morning. I thought, I'm not going to listen to the last track, because it just, to me, that, and you guys that will purchase this or stream it, you will all have your favorites. But to me personally, that is the last track, which is Together Alone. But I'm jumping. Let's go. So we've just spoken about Farewell. Goon Hilly. Where'd you come up with that?
Well, as I mentioned earlier in our chat, we were, there's this Telstar connection. Joe Meek, homage to Joe Meek. We were, as a family, we went very often to the same little village in Cornwall on holiday when I was a kid. We always drove down to the Lizard Peninsula, it's called. Yeah. We always drove past Goonhilly Downs, and I was a big geek science nut as a kid, and still am. And so it was amazing to see these things. And I have some field recordings on there that were also made at the Lizard Peninsula. So it's very abstract, Goonhilly, in the sense it's a noise piece, really.
I've got there one of the most sort of radical one of the most radical tracks as far as lots of innovative sounds.
It's not melodic or rhythmic.
It's very,
in the same way that Michigan is not really melodic or rhythmic. That's me enjoying that atonal noise world, I suppose. And Goonhilly, again, the title came later, but it just reminded me of my feelings as a kid, admiring this, what seemed to be almost like a science fiction world.
But you enjoyed making this album. I can see by the way you tell it now, although it was reflecting on some sad and personal moments. The actual process, you enjoyed it.
Very much so.
Yeah,
of course.
The next track is called Safe Travels.
Again, following on from Farewell, wishing us all.
Is that transcending into the next life or
wherever we're going?
Okay, so
I guess it's wider.
Wish you farewell.
We can make it. I wish you safe travels after this interview's finished as well,
because everything comes. I
wish us all safe travels as we move on in our journey through life.
Okay,
but also. I wish when our spirits leave our bodies, I wish them safe travels as well.
That's a lovely sentiment. Yeah. So it's comes from it's like I think all good things come to an end. So goodbye from this interview. Wherever you're leaving, I wish you well. So it's a beautiful thing of humanity.
The Germans have a wonderful word for farewell. It's which I believe is Leb wohl, which means kind of have a good life in some sense. So I nearly called Farewell Leb wohl, but then I wanted to stay in English.
Okay, I have to say I'm from Southeast London, and I'm just thinking, fuck off. Sorry. That's just another Vaughan randomness. Do we leave that in? Right. So and then I believe
inspired by at some stage. I don't want to get too pretentious about this, but at some stage I thought, am I making a requiem? Like because it's not, it's not a down. The record doesn't feel down to me. I'm not making something sad, but a requiem is a glorious commemoration as well, and it's the cycle of life and death is what life and death are. It's nothing to be sad about. It is our reality. So a requiem is a hugely uplifting and spiritual event, as well as expressing sadness at loss. It's also expressing great thanks for what we've had. And at some stage I thought, am I making a requiem? And part of the requiem mass, I believe, is this Latin thing, credo, the credo. I believe in the Holy Ghost, whatever I don't even know what the translation of the text is. But that felt to me, when I got to that point, I thought, okay, this is my credo. This is something that I believe in. I believe in all the tracks that have happened up to there, and I believe in the track that's about to happen. So,
well, when we talk about the track that's about to happen, as I mentioned, Together Alone is the song that literally brought me to tears. And it was quite funny because
It's called Alone Together, I think.
Alone Together. Oh, so
not that it matters.
So that's my slight dyslexia kicking in or
That
something.
doesn't matter. That doesn't matter.
Alone Together, sorry.
Together Alone is great as well. It works
Together.
both ways. That's one
Alone
of the things
Together.
I like about it.
And it was just fascinating because when I got the link to this and I listened to it, I was happy. I just sat down when I listened to this whole album. It's not a downer, of course not, but this is like, it like plays on your senses. It's just, it's deep. And by the time
it's dark. I think the record is dark.
Yes.
It's pretty horrible actually having to talk about your own record like this.
No, but it's...
I just want people to experience it for themselves.
This is why most of the people who are fans of this channel and this community are into this kind of music. So I really believe they will enjoy it. They really will. And that is why when you get to this Alone Together, not Together Alone, it is kind of like the grand finale. To me, it's one of the most melodic tracks.
Yeah.
And is this how you intended it? Because to me, this is like the grand finale of the track.
Well, it's in a way, it's more like I imagined it as like a lullaby closer, and it's definitely a closing piece, right?
Yes, yeah.
And you said it's more melodic.
See what I wrote there?
Bittersweet lullaby.
A bittersweet lullaby.
There you go.
That's why I've actually written that, bittersweet lullaby.
That's how I feel. Yeah. That's how I was feeling about it. Yeah. And you say it's more melodic, and actually that piece did start with the piano chords. The piano is something we could talk about in
the Geek Talk. Yeah.
The piano is something we could talk about in the Geek Talk, so I won't go there now. Yeah. But I was sitting at the keyboard, mucking around with a few chords, and I thought, these two progressions are kind of something, maybe. My whole artistic endeavours involve negotiating with the critic. I have to shut the critic up or I can't do anything.
This is true.
Otherwise, I think, I'm not Kraftwerk, I'm not Martin Gore, I'm not Ludwig van Beethoven. What's the point? I'm not Wendy Carlos. And as long as I'm in that mindset, I can't do anything. But I can, if I negotiate with the critic and say, look, just give me a break, leave me be for a few hours, then I can actually make something personal, which is all we can hope to do, I think.
And that was very flattering to Martin Gore that you put him in that, behind Ludwig van Beethoven.
And Kraftwerk.
Kraftwerk, I'm going to say
Martin's a great songwriter and a huge influence on my life. Because obviously we had a very creative time together in the studio. So I love Martin. So,
Are you still in touch?
On and off.
On and off.
Yeah,
okay.
we don't go to the pub every week.
Of course not. Yeah. Ask him if you can produce their next album. We'll leave it at that. Right. So Gareth, you say this album was made over a period of a year. You really enjoyed making it. Will there be like a obviously, you can't do a sequel or a follow-up to it because this is really a sort of piece of work in itself. It's a very conclusive album. But are you thinking of maybe bringing out another album eventually? Or you are.
Yeah,
good.
Very much. I mean, I want to continue with this flow.
This is good.
I'm doing. There's lots of collaborative work that I'm doing as well. The work with Nick Hook and Spiritual Friendship's ongoing. We're working on our 4th album now. It's kind of nearly finished, but we just need to finish that. I've done this album with Emily Tierson, Tiny Feet, that I'm excited about. I've got another project called Naus Alpha that we've done 1 album, and the new album is called A Walk in the Woods. That's going to come out next year. And I still want to carve time for myself to... Electrogenetics, like a self-titled project, so the name carries on in my hope. So the first album is called Electrogenetic and the project's called Electrogenetic as well.
Okay, so
in my mind, Electrogenetic carries on to another piece of work which I've kind of experimenting with now. I am taking snippets of samples from my father's record collection, which again is deeply personal, more about my dad actually than my mum. But I've got his records, and a lot of them are mono, really old. He looked after his records. He was a collector. He didn't have many records, but he looked after them, and so and it's very interesting for me to hear them. So anyway, I'm sketching out some ideas, taking samples of the old record collection and using fragments to create new pieces, which I'm finding.
Well, I'm personally glad to hear that, because, as I say, we've always known as Gareth Jones, the producer, the the creator of noise and sounds and all that. So it was good to see. This is a look inside your soul, I feel. This is Gareth Jones, the artist, and you will not be disappointed. Guys, the album is called Electrogenetic. It is released on the 18th of September 2020. And it is on the, I just want a question about the record label. It's on the Carmen Collect, is an independent label.
Carmen Collect is a tiny label,
Yeah.
run by my friend Nick Hook, who's 50% of Spiritual Friendship, this other project. He's a great artist in his own right as well. Great producer, great beat maker, great musician, and a great spiritual friend of mine. And he said all along that he would like to, that he's kind of encouraged me. He said all along that he would like to put my record out. So I didn't like shop it around. When the record was finished, I said, Nick, the record's finished, what should we do? He said, well, we'll put it out. So it's very much a bootstrap operation. It's a tiny little label based out of Brooklyn. We've got some wonderful help with a graphic artist and label manager on board. Everyone's doing it for love. It's loads of love, and it's very, very independent. Tiny.
You can feel the sincerity in this, really. Because one of the questions, and one of the sort of obvious questions that came to my mind, is obviously your association with Mute.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would have thought, oh, why is it not released on Mute Records? I don't know if that's a rude question or...
No, it's not a rude question. I sent the record to my friend Joff at Mute, the A&R guy, and I sent the record to Daniel, and I heard nothing back. So that was it. So there you go. So, you know, would have been nice. But I feel very good because I had a long-standing commitment with Nick to do it as well. So, of course, a proper label, a big label, is an awesome thing because you get so much support and help and vinyl and everything, you know. And marketing, all these things are like super important. But, you know, I did send it to him and I never heard anything back.
Daniel, if you're watching.
I'm sure he's not.
I love that. No, because...
that's how it goes, you know.
Yeah.
Not everyone responds, you know.
Yeah. So it's Carmen Collect, 18th of September on download, stream, and limited cassette, and possibly vinyl.
And also, we found a little label in Wales, the name of which I can't remember, I'll mail it you, who wanted to do CDs. So we're doing old school worldwide distribution. We're building a little network around the world. This guy said, oh, we'd love to put this out on CD. So we all had a little chat, and they're going to do it on CD as well. So.
I think, Gareth, as well, a lot of people, especially like in my community as well, they're the type of people that'll buy CDs, even if they don't have a CD player, to support the artist, and then they will stream it. But, just to own it.
Yeah.
So I think putting it out, but these things it's all a business thing. You don't want to, it's the financial costs of putting things out. But
of course, you can do a small run of CDs as well. I don't think our friend in Wales is not doing like 1 million CDs or anything. You know, I think he's going to do a small run. But he wanted to do it, and obviously it's flat. We were delighted. Yeah. We didn't want to do CDs. He wanted to, so we said. And I'm going to do a bit of merch as well. I'm going to do small postcards, watercolour. I paint in watercolour. That's one of my watercolours actually. And I'm going to offer watercolour postcards with the text from. There's 3 pieces on the record have text, so I'm going to offer people a choice of text and handwrite the text on the back and mail them a postcard.
Well, absolutely. You'll keep us updated with all that.
Proper analog experience.
See, guys, this is the real deal right here. Before you go, I just want to quickly play you something. I've got a special message here for you from someone that you will remember.
That's nice.
Someone from the past.
That's nice.
Okay. Yeah, so Gareth, here's a special message from someone in the past that you will recognise. I'm putting you on the spot, yeah?
You are, yeah.
There we go.
That's Brian.
Hi, Gareth. How you doing? It's been some years, hasn't it? I think it was your flat in Berlin in the 80s. I hope to see you again one day. And don't forget, my new book's coming out, Black Country Dada. Hope you get a copy.
Thank you, Brian. Awesome. Is Brian in London?
Well, no, we're actually neighbours. He actually lives in the same building I do.
In London?
Yeah, we live in Rotherhithe, which is close to Abbey Street, where so I'm hoping eventually. Could could you give us the spiritual clap, please, sir? Okay. Hi guys, and welcome to Geek Talk, where we talk deep and geek about keyboards, synthesizers, and music production. And my special guest, once again, Mr. Gareth Jones.
Here I am.
Gareth, thanks again for having us.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming.
We've really enjoyed the first. If you guys watched the first interview, we talked about Gareth's electrogenetic album out on September the 18th. Definitely check it out. Now, I've since then had a chance to sit in Gareth's sweet spot, and for those of you who think I'm being perverted, in the sweet spot in audio engineering basically just means help me out here, the equilateral,
in the middle of the speakers.
In the middle of the speaker, dead center. And it was just really great, as I say, because I've been listening to Gareth's album over the last couple of weeks and getting into it for this interview, and to actually sit on his chair and hear the way he hears it, it was just absolutely mind-blowing. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I want to just talk to you about a few of the geeky stuff for the geeks out there.
That's why we're here.
I see you're a Logic man.
I'm a big Logic fan, yeah.
Thank you. And I just want to say to all the guys there who keep trying to put me onto Ableton and things like that.
Well, I do love Live as well.
Okay.
I use Ableton Live in my collaborative projects because it's a language that I speak jointly with some of my friends. My friend Chris in Naus Alpha project speaks Pro Tools and Ableton. So it's a common language where we use Ableton. And Nick Hook is also a Pro Tools and Ableton guy.
I see.
So in the work I do with Nick, we use Ableton as well. But I kind of I go way back with Logic and Creator, way back to Atari days.
Back to eMagic.
Yeah, man.
Before it became on Mac.
Atari MIDI only. So I got a long relationship with the company. I'm a huge fan anyway. I've got a current great relationship with Apple and some of the team in Cupertino. And at the start of this album, it was clear to me that I was going to create it in Logic for what it's worth. Sure. I mean, as I said all along, it doesn't really matter.
Yes.
But somehow it does matter as well.
Yes,
so,
yes. I think, and this is something I got from Dave Bascombe as well, was I find it's usually the novices, or us people who are not on your level, we kind of get fixated on the gear. And people like you usually say, it's not about the gear, it's about you, the artist, and I think we're at a position now where most DAWs will do the job. It's just
they're all amazing.
So
really, it's just a connection thing. But and I have a deep connection with Logic, and I'm delighted. And all my commissioned work is done in Logic. Really, when all my commission mixing, I take files and I build Logic sessions. So I'm very comfortable, and I love it.
I remember when Logic became known as the Pro Tools killer at one point, because it really was. You could do everything on it that you could do on Pro Tools, and
like you say, they all do everything now.
This is true.
They're all amazing.
This is true.
So,
well, coming back to your electrogenetic album, as I say, just sitting here listening to it was absolutely amazing. We're going to sort of do a studio tour just now, guys, and I'm going to bring in Simon Forsyth, who's hiding in the back there, and
Simon.
I'm going to get Simon actually to ask the questions on the modulars, because although I'm fascinated by that kind of stuff, I think it's fair to give someone like Simon the platform, because he's got the in-depth geeky knowledge on that. But before we get on to that, Gareth, I just want to ask you, listening to your album once again, which is out on September the 18th, buy it. It's fucking brilliant.
Thank you, Vaughan.
I'll take that tenner later. But something Simon also talked about is the seamlessness, as I talked about on our previous interview. It's very organic sounding, although it's electronic, and it's this kind of seamless blending with the sort of found sounds and the modular sounds. And how did you achieve that? Is that a stupid question, or is it just what you do? It's what I do. It's just what you do.
It's everything I do now is a result of like 50 years working with, if it takes me 5 minutes, it's taken me 50 years plus 5 minutes to do. So I've got a kind of approach to sound and how I personally work. And so it just turned out like that.
Well, it's just also interesting because, guys, while I was sitting here listening to it, Gareth was standing at the back listening to it. And I asked Gareth, I said, you know, what are you hearing? And he said, no, he likes it. And the reason I asked you that question was because we as artists, we can't let things go. You seem to have made peace with, maybe I should ask the question this way. Were you at a point in your career where you suffered from that? Oh, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. How do you know when you can let something go? Because art is never finished. It's only abandoned. How do you know when you're at that point where you can abandon it?
Well, when it was mastered, I suppose.
Okay, well that's
when it was ready to master.
That's right.
Or even before, when I shared the private SoundCloud link with you guys. At that point, I'm done.
So you've let it go. Yeah.
You know, there are many great gurus are hugely inspirational about us. Steve Jobs said famously, "Real artists ship," as regards software.
Okay.
Real artists, you have to get it out there.
Yes.
You know, you have to get it. And hey, it's taken me a very long time, Vaughan. You know, I can't sit on some pedestal and go, I know how to do it. It took me 40 years of not finishing stuff to get to this point now. And really, it was inspired by my collaborative work with, well, all the many great artists I worked with over the years, but also the original work that I've done with Spiritual Friendship and with Naus Alpha, where we just finished stuff, where we stopped judging. We said our job is not to judge ourselves, our job is to make music. And I was able to bring that forward into doing a solo project and say, well, at some point, hey, it took me a year. I mean, I didn't work every day, all day on it, but it took me a year before I got to the point where I said, you know what? Here, I'm ready to share this.
It is very difficult when you are doing your own project, and as a lot of you guys in the community are self-producing yourself. It's very difficult when you are the artist and the producer
It's
to
very
sort
difficult,
of change hats and to sort of detach from that process.
For what it's worth, my advice about this, and I've underlined it a bit before and I underline it again now, is to really, our job is not to judge it. Our job is to make it. And of course we make critical decisions all the time, and we edit and we review and we go back. But our job is to silence the critic, the inner critic, make stuff. Many times I make stuff and I think it's shit. And then the next day I think, oh, it's not too bad. And the day after that I think, oh, actually, I could play that to my mates. And 2 days later I think, actually, I'm pretty pleased with this. Okay. And it's the same. I've had the experience. I love doing like watercolours. Like very enthusiastic amateur watercolourist, and it's not representational. Again, it's more abstract what I do. It happens exactly the same. I spend a couple of hours doing watercolours. I think it's all rubbish. Yeah. And in the past I would have thrown it away. And now the next day I look at it, I think, oh, that's not too bad. And 2 days later I'm like, I really love that one. Yeah. So I don't find my inner critic helpful. Yeah, I have to silence my inner critic, and I think that's good advice for all our friends and your followers.
Thank you. I think that's I've often said that logic is the enemy of creativity, because so this is why in the good old days, let's say Depeche come into the studio. Here's the album. They put it together, and you're left with Daniel to balance it and everything. They've done their part. You've done your part, but it's very difficult when you're doing everything. Because the engineer, although the engineer...
Well, it's just a different flow.
Yeah, it is the criticism.
It's more difficult because if I'm working with a friend, when I work with Nick making Spiritual Friendship, I don't want Nick to get bored. And he doesn't want me to get bored. So we don't sit there chin scratching. Okay. We get on with it. Because our time's precious. He lives in America. I live here. Yeah. We've only got a few days together. We need to get shit done. Sure. Obviously, when you're on your own, we can be our own worst critic.
Okay, well, let's just get back onto the album. You've used a lot of modulars, and what would you say is the percentage of this is modulars, and how much of it is VST or plugins or samples?
Well, there's loads of plugins used in the mixing process because it's mixed in hybrid. It's mixed in Logic and through this tube summing mixer, this analog EQ, and this awesome compressor. Okay. I've got a mixing chain that I used to mix the album. So it gets touched by tubes and transistors and analog compression. Plugins in the mixing, virtual mixing consoles in here, as much as I want, really. Like many people in my world, I got millions of plugins. But most of the
synthesizers.
The writing of the sound, the creation of the sound is made with my modular rig. There's some voice. This JX3P is used on the album. One of the big sounds on the album is the sample piano. Yeah.
Yes, tell us
the
about
piano
that.
has a history. It's the piano I played as a kid from my mum's living room. About 10 years ago, I visited my mum, and I knew the piano wasn't going to stay there very long, and I took a little Roland handheld recorder, and I multi-sampled the piano. I played every note, loud, medium and soft, and with a pedal on and off, and I took a big multi-sample of the piano. It was horrifically out of tune, and then some years later I tuned each note as best I could.
Wow. And
finished up with a very personal piano sound for me.
So that is the sound of that. So we naturally assume it was a plug-in or a...
No, it's a sample piano that I built myself.
That's amazing.
From the piano that I played over 50 years ago.
Wow.
In my mum's living room. So that's like a huge piece of temporal connection going on. Obviously it's got some reverb on it at times. I'm a massive fan of the Eventide Black Hole. Pedals at home actually now. But and a lot of the piano was tracked with the reverb on it. So I committed to the sound as I played it. So that's a big part, but it's a homemade sample piano. So that's a big part of it. And otherwise, really, it's the core make noise stuff. There's a couple of Moog modules I've got that are super important for the bottom end.
Absolutely.
I don't know what else I use now, unless I were to look through the individual sessions.
Well, I think this goes nicely into the sort of mini studio tour we're going to do now. So I'm going to get up, we're going to do the camera on hands-free. And we're going to just look at some of your pieces of gear, and you can talk us through it. And then Simon's going to ask you some questions on the modulars.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's great.
Right, Gareth, we are here at the Hands View camera, and we're going to just do a little mini studio tour for the viewers here. Let's start off over here. You've got a JX3P, and this featured quite. You use this a lot on your.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it's my only polyphonic keyboard. Apart from the Access, which hasn't got a keyboard, the Virus. That's a friend of mine gave me that. I love that. I love the control. I love that it's digitally controlled analog, I think. Sweet sound. It's what I have. So that got used. Speakers everywhere, as you can see. Very important.
Those monitors of yours are amazing. Could you tell us what they are?
Barefoots, and they are legendary monitors, much loved in the pro audio community.
Yeah.
Very coherent, very tuneful bass end. It's not just sub, it's sub with notes.
Yes.
Which is super important, and high resolution for me. I like them. I use a SonarWorks plugin actually to compensate for the room.
I saw
There's a bit of a dip in this room.
Oh, right.
SonarWorks changed my life with the bass end.
I saw the
really recommend it.
Yeah, I did see this. I saw the SonarWorks on your master bus there, and I was going to ask you. I see. Oh, there's the preset.
Look at the difference. Look at that suck out in the room. That's minus 60 dB at 90 hertz.
Wow.
So before I had the SonarWorks, I was tending to put way too much 90 hertz on, and because I wasn't hearing it. And not enough in the, anyway, the inverse of that curve. So SonarWorks has been great for me. It's a poor man's Trinov. The Trinov is the state-of-the-art one, but SonarWorks is the poor man's Trinov. I highly recommend it.
Okay, well, that's great. Okay, well, let's look at your control console over there, Gareth.
Behringer. I had a bit of a breakthrough with Behringer because I was at Guitar Centre and they gave me a voucher and I bought the Behringer Model D, which I thought sounded really great. This is not for the Moog Instagram feed.
Yeah, no, of course not.
And I was really impressed by it. And Behringer used to be crap, in my humble opinion, but they seem to be now pretty awesome. And after my good experience with the Model D, which I really enjoy the sound of, great bottom end, I needed my old Mackie controllers wore out. And I looked at different options. The Mackie was quite expensive. I thought I'd try the Behringer, and it's turned out really good. It's very compact. It's got nice colours on it. Fits nicely under my monitors. I love the faders, you see, because I'm old school. So I spent so many years on big consoles.
Hands-on,
so I find faders really creative and useful.
Well, I used to work in Turnkey Soho Sound, as you'd know the place many years ago. I used to be the salesman and the buyer, and I know that Behringer had a lot of problems back in those days.
Well, they were the very cheap bottom end of the market, and they're
so.
still super affordable. But this is it's quality shit, in my opinion. That's right. It was the Midas team that came in and changed everything, I think. Especially probably with this controller. Anyway, that is a great controller for me. Controllers aren't for everyone. This is great too. The soft tube console one, I think it's called console one. Yeah.
Okay.
This comes with software as well. This the basic configuration emulates a channel strip on a SSL console.
It does, yes.
So I really like that. Again, hands-on, because the thing for me with hands-on is I can turn more than one knob at once, which I really like. With a mouse, I can only adjust one parameter at a time.
And that was a question, Gareth. I know a lot of people are in the box these days. And when I interviewed Mesh, the band Mesh, you produced their...
No, I mixed a record with them.
Oh, you mixed it?
Yeah, I did produce it.
Okay, it was the Weaker Light 2006 album. And I remember Rich Silverthorne saying, this was 2006, he was amazed. I think they met you at a hotel room or something. He said he was amazed when you came in, they met you, and he said, "Where's all your gear?" Because I think this was, I think you were one of those forerunners that went into the box very, in the box is very popular these days.
Yeah, of course.
But he was amazed at the time to see, like, where's all your gear? You were doing it all on a G4 Mac at the time. But the question I'm asking is, because you're sort of old school, that is why you do like, obviously, having the hands-on control, hence the controllers and stuff. Yeah.
I mean, it's part of my history.
Yes.
And it's not only... It's there's a lot of new school musicians and producers who love all the faders as well.
Yes,
but it's kind of deep in my DNA, I suppose.
I think it's just nice to have a more hands-on feel. Let's look around what you've got here. I see you've got a Revox. Do you ever? Was this album?
No, this album. I didn't have the Revox. No, I thought about putting it on tape. I had this beautiful Stellavox. The bottom end was really important to me on the album, the super low subs, and I got it to a point that I was delighted with it, and I ran out of time and energy to pursue it further with tape. The bottom end on the Revox is incredible, but this album didn't go to tape. The next album might. I don't know.
Well, I'm pleased to hear there's going to be a next album, so that's very good to hear.
Yeah.
Well, let's
I'm pleased as well. God willing, if God wills it for him.
Gareth, you're looking great, man. I'm sure we're going to get another 50 years out of you, so don't you worry.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so let's walk down this. This is a tube.
This is the Thermonic Culture Fat Bustard.
Yeah.
It's a tube summing mixer.
Yes.
Very simple, 14:2. Lovely overdrive on this knob. Saturation, I suppose we should call it.
Yeah.
Pultec style EQ.
Oh, great, yeah.
And I can just split up my output into 7 stereo stems, if you like.
Okay.
And I just love the sound of it. Ever since I bought it, it's in use almost all the time.
So would you say is this like an integral part of your sound now?
It's an integral part of this album.
Oh, okay.
Since Studio B started coming online at home, I'm mixing more out of outputs 1 and 2 only for compatibility between. If I'm out of outputs 1 and 2, I can just open it up at home because I've got. I'm a big fan of the UAD plugins. I've got the 16 cores of UAD in that Mac, and I've got 8 core at home. So the sessions move between Studio A and Studio B easily, but I haven't got a Fat Bustard at home. But still, this album's all about going through the tubes and the clariphonic EQ. This is a Genius EQ that does only treble, basically. So, but it's got a lovely smooth sound. I like it a lot. It's strapped to my mix bus all the time. And then, relatively new for me, but used all over this album again, the EQ goes into the tweakers, these amazing Kush compressors that have lovely saturation and colour. So that's just stayed for the whole chain. Everything got mixed through that chain.
I think there are a lot of in the box emulations, but I think there's a lot to be said for having the sort of like the organic, or I don't say it's not the organic, but the sort of the sound that these things give you that plugins probably can't. You know, there's a richness.
Maybe there's so many people do great. It's just fun, man.
It's fun.
It's just fun. Like we were saying
yeah.
about vinyl before, it's a beautiful way to do it. Like recording to tape might not sound better. These Metric Halo, I use Metric Halo audio interfaces. I've got a lot in here. I think I got 5, and they sound absolutely great, and I really enjoy using them. But there's something really fun about recording to tape as well. So if it's fun, it's a good vibe, you know.
That's true. And we also in a lot of the debates we have about analog versus digital, plugins versus hardware, I think it's just, as we'll talk about when we get to the modulars now, they just inspire you to work in a different way.
Yeah, I'm a hybrid guy.
Yeah.
Very much. I'm very comfortable with digital, and I love working with analog, you know. But the modular has been a huge part of my musical development. It is through the modular that I've been able to create finished pieces that I feel willing to share with you guys, because so that's been really, really important to me personally. Rediscovering modern Eurorack modular has catapulted me into being a published artist. Okay. So that has to be said. You know, although it's all cool, you know, without the modular, this record wouldn't exist.
Brilliant. Well, as I say, this brings us right into the modular section here, and I'm going to now bring Simon in to ask the questions regarding the modulars. So, Simon, here you go. So, Gareth, thank you for that. Thank you, Simon, for that little bit of modular tour. As I say, Simon's definitely the guy to talk about things like that. But you seem it's always great to see two sort of like super geeks geeking out about things like that.
I hope we didn't get too overexcited. We didn't embarrass ourselves.
Well, that is why I've separated my channel into a piano keyboard and a geek talk session.
Good idea.
It's just,
people know what they're getting.
Yeah,
okay.
People do know what they're getting.
No triangle in the corner.
Geek talk, yeah. I just want to ask you about the strong room, because you did move this is your room. This was your original room, and you've got it back again, because you did move out here at one point and you did more remote mixing. Is that right?
Yeah, I got this room. I moved back from Berlin in '92. Yeah. They were building these rooms, and this room was built for me. And I was here for many years. It's a great community, creative community, technical community, amazing studios. And at one point, I think about 2006. It started the rent went up quite a lot. It started to feel painful to me. Oh, so I tried something different. I worked out of my house, and then I had a very portable setup. It wasn't that portable. With an assistant, I could set up different white spaces for different projects, depending on. And then, I don't know, a few years ago, I needed a space. I rented an office at the end of this warehouse for a couple of months. And in that period, this room became available. And the studio manager at the time, Phil, still referred to it as my room. He said, "Gareth, your room has become available." And it seemed like and I bought actually some monitors in here and had a listen to it and decided really if I wanted to move back in. This artwork that I had commissioned, I had in storage at the time. So I got the artwork out of storage and put it back up on the walls. And I felt I'm very much enjoying being here. It's a very dynamic, thriving, creative, artistic, musical community, and there's a bar. What more do you want?
You know, and I when I came in, I said to Simon, "God, this is one hell of a man cave." But then I thought, no, this isn't actually a man cave. There's something quite spiritual about this. You know, you've got a really, as I say, just the way it's done, you've got a really good vibe going here, and the sound is good in here and everything. And I think geekily, if there is such a word, there's no such thing as a perfect sounding room. Yes, for the community, yeah, because people are always trying to look for the perfect sound in a room. And even a room like this, which is better than most people could work in, you use something like the SonarWorks plugin just to
it's a joke. This room is 6 meters by 3 meters by 2 meters, which is all wrong.
Yeah,
because the numbers divide into each other really. So it's a wonderful creative space, and I've made some great records and done some amazing music with very talented people in this room. But acoustically, it's shit.
It is really about understanding the room. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, SonarWorks is corrected. for me, and headphones are a great part of my life, and so on. And I've got many different monitors, but yeah, they're a lot better. There are some rooms, even in this complex, that are acoustically far better, but they're way bigger and they're way more expensive. So it's everything's compromised. We could, if we had a $500,000 budget, we could build a really nice sounding room.
Sure we can. Should we start a crowdfunder?
Well, that's your plan for me later, right?
Well,
after I bought the yacht,
we're gonna have a chat. Actually, we're gonna have a chat. But there was something I was asking Matt, and at the end of the Dave Bascombe interview, because I like to always give my people I'm interviewing a gift. And I asked Matt, I said, and I know Bascombe, I gave him a bottle of Chivas Regal. And I was speaking to Matt, I said, what does Gareth drink? He says, I don't know, we only drink tea together. So I got Lloyd, and I had a few people in the group trying to find out what you drink, because we wanted to buy you a little, but we couldn't find anything. So, and it's terrible if you give someone a bottle of booze and they go, I don't drink, I can't drink. So I understand we wanted to buy you a gift, so maybe we could take you for a beer sometime or something. I understand you like brew dog, you're a beer drinker.
I enjoy a craft beer.
Okay, so
which
well done,
we can conveniently get one after the interview.
Absolutely.
At the Strong Room Bar.
I think what we'll do is we've got some things to discuss with Gareth, and we'll definitely, I'm sure we can definitely get the beers. Gareth, I just want to say thank you so much. This has been an absolute honour and a dream come true, not only for me and my community. And I wish you all the best with this album. As I say, I'm going to be plugging it and posting it wherever I can.
Thank you very much, Vaughan. It's been a great pleasure having you all here in my room. I've enjoyed chatting.
Absolutely. So, guys, Gareth Jones, I will be putting links to all the album and all the things we've spoken about in the description below.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Adios.
Nagyon-nagyon keveset beszéltünk. Itt lenne az új Gareth Jones lemez, beszélgettek róla, Von George-ék. Ez is így nagyon érdekes, ugye mivel maga Gareth Jones, aki csinálja a lemezt, ő beszél, nem csak én. Ugye így. És akkor szerintem köszönjünk is el. Ugye én vagy Takács Máté filmünkkel. Légy szíves, tekintsétek maga a videókat, adjatok lájkokat, nyomjátok be a feliratkozás gombot, és ne felejtsétek benyomni a csengőt. Sziasztok!